Namaskar, hello and a very warm welcome to this special series of ours, Listening to Learn, yani Suno or Seekho. My name is Tanvi Khurana and this is our 56th session. Let me tell you that Department of Education in Science and Mathematics, NCERT, brings you this National Student Outreach Program, that is Pravasi Bharatiya Academic and Scientific Sampark. This program, this series, integrates Indian diaspora with its motherland. So far, we have discussed a lot of topics in this particular program, be it related to forgotten legacy of Aryabhat, be it related to medicine, soil manufacturing, and a lot more. So today, we have a very special topic, and that is United Nations Annual Country-Wise Human Development Index. I'm sure you have all heard about it. Well, this index comes once a year. It's an annual thing by United Nations, and so many countries are listed in this index, and they are given a rank. But the question is, what is the basis of this rank? On what criteria United Nations give those countries a rank? What is the criteria and what is the logic? Are they relevant enough? So many things are there to discuss in this particular program. If you have any questions, any queries, reach out to us. There are multiple methods through which you can reach out to us, be it our eVidya channels. You're watching us on eVidya channel number 9, 10, 11 and 12, and also on our YouTube channel, that is NCERT Official. In the live chat box, you can write down your questions, your queries related to this topic, and we'll be taking them towards the end of our program. And if you want us to take up any topic of your choice, if you have any opinion, any feedback, please share it with us. We would love to accommodate it in our upcoming sessions. And there's a lot to talk about in this particular program, and let me tell you, this is not an ordinary program. It's not an ordinary series. You can watch us wherever you are. At this moment, all you need is an internet connection. That's all. So let me please introduce you to the brain behind this entire program, and he is from Department of Education in Science and Mathematics. He is the one who gets all the credit for organizing this entire program, and he is Dr. Gagan Gupta. Sir, a very warm welcome to you.
Namaskar, Tanviji.
Namaskar, sir. Namaskar. And you can also see on your screens, we have one more guest who is sitting with us in our studio. She is Dr. Mamta Sharma. Ma'am, a very warm welcome.
Namaskar.
Namaskar. We have one more special guest, but before we introduce him to all of you, I would request Dr. Gagan Gupta to introduce ma'am to all of them and introduce the topic as well to all our viewers for their better understanding.
Namaskar, Tanvi. Namaskar and very warm good morning to India, to our Indian viewers as well as to our US viewers today. Today's session is also being streamed live on Augusta University's handles live, and it will be streamlined again on other channels as well. So today we have Dr. Ernie SRS Rao from Augusta University with us. Before we introduce him to you friends, let me recall that Dr. Rao has been with us in the same series on October 8th of 2021. That was our 10th session, and at that time Dr. Rao spoke on artificial intelligence. His topic was Indian ancient and modern mathematics and artificial intelligence. So Dr. Rao, great mathematician with us, he will be speaking on Human Development Index today, that how relevant it is, how relevant this calculation today. Friends, let me recall that this program we do in the collaboration with the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, New Delhi, under its Pravasi Bharatiya Academic and Scientific Sampark program, and this activity on behalf of PAS is known as National Student Outreach Program. So today we have with us Dr. Mamta Sharma from the CSIR, and this program is also being streamed live on CSIR India live YouTube as well as Facebook channels. All of you can please send your questions on either of these handles, and then those questions will reach to us and we will try to address all those problems towards the end of this session. Friends, we have taken talks on medicine, colonial India, economics, nutrition, planetary programs, space programs, heart circulatory systems, COVID-19, etc., etc. Your suggestions have been very useful to us, and we are arranging sessions on the topics which are being advised by you. So please keep on sending your suggestions, keep on sending your objections, your reactions to our programs. These are really very helpful. So Professor Arni is with us. Before I speak to Dr. Mamta Sharma to introduce today's speaker, Professor Arni Rao, let me make a small introduction about Mamta ji. Dr. Mamta, who is the principal scientist at the CSIR, CSIR's International Science and Technology Affairs Directorate at New Delhi. Dr. Sharma is basically a geologist, and she did her PhD from the Banaras Hindu University, India. She has more than 15 years of research experience in coal geology, coal petrology, and ore and mineral characterizations. She has good number of publications in peer reviewed journals and patents to her credit. She has also presented her research in more than 24 national and international scientific meetings in India and outside India both. She is a recipient of many awards, including the India Distinguished Visiting Fellowship from the University of Nottingham, United Kingdom in 2010, Dr. Altetkar Award in 2014, Khare Award in 2014, and IIME Best Paper Award in 2016. So welcome Dr. Mamta Sharma on behalf of CSIR. So please we request you to kindly welcome Dr. Rao, today's speaker, on CSIR behalf too, and on behalf of Prabhas, and introduce Dr. Rao to our audience, please.
It's a great pleasure for me to introduce Professor Arni S.R. Srinivasa, Professor Director of the Laboratory for Theory and Mathematical Modeling at Medical College of Georgia, Augusta, USA. Was born and completed all his studies in India, where he has held a permanent faculty position up till 2012 at Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata. A researcher in modeling, Professor Rao has also taught several courses at Indian Institute of Science, Hiroshima University of Oxford, and the University of Guelph. He has also presented his research in many international forums, including the John H. Conway Lecture in 2022. The models developed by Dr. Rao has obtained recognition in many areas, not only in mathematics and statistics, but also in health. His AI model for COVID-19 identification has been an inspiration for Arogya Setu app and many other such mobile-based apps. Dr. Rao's mathematical models assist in the national AIDS control planning in India. His AIDS modeling also got international appreciation. Currently, Dr. Rao is also a member of AL-enabled technologies and system domain expert group constituted in 2001 by Council of Scientific Industrial Research, Government of India. He edited 10 volumes of Handbook of Statistics elsewhere jointly with the legendary statistician C.R. Rao. He guest edited a special issue in 2022 on probability and statistics to the oldest journal from modern India, the Journal of Indian Institute of Science. I would like to invite Dr. Rao to kindly deliver the lecture.
Thank you Mamta ji. For general audience, so see, the Human Development Index is sometimes taken as synonymous with the Gross National Income Index, or which is also called GDP Index sometime. I request Dr. Rao to start his session, his deliberation. Probably he will be making a vis-a-vis study with all other indexes and historical perspectives. So Dr. Rao, please, most welcome.
Thanks a lot. Namaste to all. Namaskar everyone. Thanks a lot to Dr. Mamta Sharma for a nice introduction to me. And I want to thank Dr. Gagan Gupta ji for his energetic running of the show and for his invitation. And also I want to thank Dr. Tanvi Khurana on the board. And along with the experts on the team, I also want to thank ISTA Director, Prabhas Director Dr. Amma Bansal, and Principal Scientist of Prabhas, Dr. Mohit Anand, for all their work towards Prabhas and CSIR. So it gives a great pleasure to me to meet the school children, 9th grade to 12th grade in India, on this very important topic on Human Development Index. Because as I was growing as a kid in India, I was also looking at these numbers and historical values and all these things. I was really interested to work on various things on ancient Indian math. For the last 2 to 2.5 years, I have been working on the ancient math and ancient history, the scientific contributions in India and across the world. In that connection, I also published some articles on ancient Indian math, and I presented earlier in NCERT talk how the ancient Indian mathematicians like Aryabhatta, they all used to do computations on the space calculations, all these things. So in continuation of that, I started looking at the HDI values, Human Development Index, and then how much money, the wealth was taken out of India, all these things. So somehow I thought, there is some mismatch between the Human Development Index produced by the developed by the United Nations and the history of several countries. Their index values are low, but then the history was so rich. So I tried to investigate over the last 1.5 years, and they published an article in 2022 that really attracted so many scientists across the world in various countries, in India, US, all the countries, and I received a lot of support in the social media and other places. So that inspired me to come up with this talk. So when NCERT invited me, I thought to present this latest research. So my talk would be partially tutorial, partially it will be seminar. Like I'm going to present some new research results on HDI, Human Development Index, and then I will also give an explanation to the school kids about how to compute it. So the talk will be a bit slow in the beginning because I want to make the students understand critically the Human Development Index. So with that introduction, let me start my slides. So as they mentioned, Dr. Gagan Gupta and Dr. Sharma, the title of my talk would be United Nations Country-Wise Human Development Index Computation. The outline of the talk.
Yes, sir. We can see your slides, the outline of the talk. Yeah.
The Human Development Index basics. I will start with the basics on the little bit of history and how the origin of the development related to HDI, little bit of origin, and then the basics involved in the computation for the school kids, and those who are not knowing also, they can also understand from the foundations I'm going to explain. And then just a minute. It's showing on here. So historical perspective of economy and business from India. So once I finish the introduction, I will come to the historical perspective of business and economy in India and some other regions in the world. And then I will bring an argument on why the HDI needs modification with historical economy. And then I will also show the revised estimates of HDI value in India if the colonial rule had not occurred in India. So that's a summary of my talk. So the basics and the historical perspective of economy business from India for the 2000 years. This will be taken, I took from the various other researchers. I have not done research, but I had done the research on the published research. And then the modification, what is the logic for bringing a modification, how do we need to work with the governments to bring a modification with the current form of HDI, and then the revised value of, I will also produce my own research results on the true HDI values for India for 2023. So let me start with the basics of HDI. If you see the select a list of countries, the HDA values for 1990 when it started, as I mentioned, this select list of countries. I just want to bring from various regions, various countries. See that US, that time, these index values lie between 0 and 1. And for the US it is 0.87 already. And Japan it was 0.84. And Norway, UK 0.8, India 0.43 in 1990. And the sources are there, on the bottom. Then if you see the same for the year 2000, you see that there is change in some of the values and most of the countries improved, including India. According to this is a snapshot. I'm going to come to the basics of computation, and then you see that the overview of the talk already I provided. This is where India in 2000 and 2010, India moved to little bit higher in 10 years. Other countries already very high, their index values are very high. Some of the countries, they were below 70, below 0.7, they crossed 80, it will be 0.8. And 2021, Indian HDI is 0.63. Just a snapshot. As I mentioned, I just selected a list of countries. There is no criteria to include them. Just just to have different regions, different countries. And then I will also compute later. You will see in the later slides. I will compute the HDI value for 2023. These are published. The 2021 value I took from the published data, and 2023 I will compute it during the talk. So basics, if you see that UN, that is United Nations, they formally launched HDI computation for all the countries in 1990. At that time itself, I believe most of the countries who are under colonial rule should have objected for that. But the India 1990, when they started this, for example, India got independence in 1947. So they're just 43-year-old country after the independence. So that was, perhaps the discussion happened in India, I was not aware of. But India, after 250 years of British rule, our lot of wealth was lost. And then at that time, in just 43 years, United Nations bringing a Human Development Index. Not only India, China, many other countries, the money was lost, the wealth was looted in Africa, etc. All that history we know. I'm going to little bit of explain that economy also, that all the economics also. They should have objected strongly. But then, the basics, if you see the HDI has three main components. That is, the first is the average health of individuals in a country. Average health. And then standard of education in that country. I will also define in terms of UNDP, what do they meant by average health, what do they meant by standard of education. But broadly, average health, standard of education, and the average living standards of the population in that country.
living standards. So living standards means how do we live, various aspects of, so all related to the money. Living standards depending on the how much money we have. So basically these three components: health of the individuals, level of education or standard of education, and average living standards. How well we are living, what luxury life we are living, or how much money we have, because money we spend on our living standards. So in the formula, HDI formula, using these three main components, HDI is computed as a geometric mean of the three indices. First thing is, as I mentioned, the average life, how longevity. So longevity data is converted into a normalized index. So that the information in the previous slide, that will be processed to obtain a normalized index on life expectancy, which in the blue color I called LE. Just some notation, that is, which is a normalized index on the health in terms of health, UNDP defined in terms of life expectancy, and then normalized index on education. And these index values, each of the index values also lie between 0 and 1. And I will also show how that is computed. And normalized index on education, that's a standard of the school attendance, as I mentioned in the previous slide. The level of or standard of education or schooling is used to obtain the normalized index on education. And then money, what we have to for our living standards, is defined in terms of the money whatever we have, average money we have, and then as a nation the money we have for living standards is in terms of computed in terms of normalized index on gross national income, GNI, which is called GNI. So LE, blue color, the LE, EDU, GNI are three indices, normalized indices. These three normalized indices are used, as I mentioned, the geometric mean to obtain. HDI is cube root of three things, these three individual indices, normalized indices. That's the formula of computing Human Development Index. So these three things are essentially used, proposed in 1990. When the first time when the HDA was computed for all the countries, this is how they defined these three, and then they went to compute. There are, the first index, life expectancy, there are a lot of technical issues are there to compute life expectancy. Issues with the limitations are there. I will also discuss at the end those limitations and those advantages, disadvantages. But these technical limitations of computing life expectancy is same for all the countries. In 1990 when they started, the same limitation exists even today. So nonetheless, they apply to all the countries in terms of computation, not the data. I'm speaking about the data in terms of the assumptions that go into computation of life expectancy. There are a lot of technical limitations are there, but then that limitations are more or less same for all the countries. So in 2021 article, there are many articles are there over the last 2 to 3 decades, limitations, but in 2021 I brought that issue again freshly, and I questioned UN's method of obtaining the population replacement level, and then there also I argued the technical limitations of computing life expectancy from the death data in that particular country. One can read that limitation. Also I will touch that thing at the end of the talk again. And the index on education is computed as a arithmetic mean of average years of schooling and expected year of schooling. Remember that HDI is computed as a geometric mean, but then the normalized index on education, I will also show that, is computed as a arithmetic mean of two things: average years of schooling in that country and expected years of schooling. I will also show that what do they mean by. That's how the education is defined by the UNDP when they launched in 1990. So mathematically, the cubic root of the three indices, just simple formula. So mathematically, the formula is okay. There are no errors in that, because we all know that the advantages of using geometric mean or arithmetic mean for the time series data. Especially the school kids know nowadays this kind of things are also taught from the sixth grade. About the sixth grade, the students are already know about the difference between the advantages of geometric mean over the arithmetic mean, mode, median. All these things are nowadays taught in the 5th to 6th grade kids across the world. So since this talk is for the 9th to 12th grade kids, I'm sure they also appreciate the advantages of geometric mean. So this particular formula what UNDP adopted, formula wise, that's fine, perfectly fine. But the logic of using certain indices, as I will talk during the presentation, they have serious limitations and they stand as illogical. I will explain that. So now, as I mentioned, the GNI is correlated with the GDP, and then that is crucial for this measure, this entire HDI, total HDI exercise. GNI stands as one of the most crucial value that is going to influence the actual total value of HDI, because those are rich countries or wealthier countries during 1990, since the beginning of the HDI value to 2021, the rich countries have higher correlation of having HDI. That's why GNI stands very important measure, and that's what I was discussing in the beginning. When the 1990 itself, when they launched, they should have been thorough discussion. But most of the countries, when the 1990s, after the World War, 30-40 years, most countries fed up with the wars, and they thought there many I have no idea what UN does. Common the government agencies, they don't know. Only thing they know is UN, the salaries they are higher. That's it. Most common researcher knows that the salaries in UN are higher. That's why they join there. But what exactly they do, how that influences the government adversely, how rich countries control the UN, all these politics, most of the common researchers or common school children, of course, they don't know. They learn all these UN's design, construction, all those things, Second World War, all these things in the history books. But they don't know actual functioning of the UN and how do they construct these indices, how do they impose certain indices, and how do they try to do all these values to judge the countries. All these things, the school children or common researcher or government agencies, they are not aware. At least I was not aware. Even though I was doing PhD, I have no idea how these things work, until I come across in the later part of as I kept on doing research in various things, interacted with the UN agencies, worked with, then only I come to know, and I was also user of the data, UN data. So let me start with the computation of, I'll come back to those, what I was touching in the previous slide. So let us compute the value of HDI for India for 2023. Because 2021 already I showed from the raw data that are already available in the UN websites. Now let me compute for 2023, just for as an example for the school kids. This particular table I am showing on the screen, I took it from the UNDP website, the source I mentioned here. So what did they do? And also the UNDP, of course, there is some logic behind it, but they have not done enough exercise to explain the reasons. In 1990, when they started, they took that three variables as I mentioned: life expectancy, the health in terms of health of a country in terms of life expectancy, the longevity. Life expectancy means life expectancy at birth. Any individual born in that particular year, how long we can expect that individual would live on an average. Need not be true for every individual like a statistical average. Although this is a output of a mathematical model called life table, but then this is a average. This is need not be true for any individual. Maybe this is true for on an average. That's what they. So minimum they considered UNDP 20 and maximum 85 in 1990, and the expected years of schooling minimum 0. Everyone expected to study, and maximum 18 years, and mean years of schooling 0, minimum 0 and maximum 15. That's what they schooling. So usually on an average, if 1 year starts at the age of 15, age of 5, they finish by, if they study until college, they finish 15 years of schooling, roughly 15 years of schooling. So, and then the GNI in terms of the minimum $100 for a nation to 75,000 maximum. These are the standard box of values UNDP has given, and using these values, we'll see that all of you will see how we compute the actual index. So 2023 values. So life expectancy is 70.2 for India in 2023, and then so 70 point. This is a value 70.2 we can obtain from the each country's respective agencies or maybe international agencies. When they compute for a particular country not available, we can obtain that. We can directly take it, or individuals researchers can compute from the raw data from the previous year or particular year. They can compute the life table and obtain. So 70.2 minus 20, the minimum value, and 85 minus the maximum value minus minimum value. So this is the input value for the 2023 life expectancy minus 20 minimum value, and then UNDP's defined maximum value, defined minimum value, that is 0.77. So the index of normalized index of life expectancy is 0.77. First index is done for 2023. Now the second index. So we have the mean. This is raw data. Mean schooling years 6.7 years. Expected schooling 11.9 years. What we do, we take the 6.7, we divide by 15, 11.9 divided by 18. Fraction, we take the two fractions. And then, as I mentioned in the other slide, we take the arithmetic average of these two things, 0.45 and 0.66 to obtain normalized index on education. So arithmetic mean of that 0.55. So we obtained normalized index on education is 0.55. So two normalized indices already we computed. Let us go to the third index. Let us go to compute the third normalized index on income. So estimated PPP for 2023 is $9,070 for India. What we do is we take the natural logarithm of this value minus the minimum, as we did for the life expectancy. This is the input value, natural logarithm of that minus natural logarithm of 100. UNDP defined minimum value, and natural logarithm divided by we take the numerator that and the denominator divided by natural logarithm of 75,000. We subtract minus 100 natural logarithm of 100. So that would come up to 0.68. So we computed normalized index of national income. So three indices of HDI, three individual normalized indices of HDI is computed, and then we substitute that in the geometric mean that we saw in the previous slide. So cube root of 0.77, 0.55 life expectancy, this is health indicator, education indicator, income indicator. There are three indices, three normalized indices, and then that gives us HDI value for India with the current value without any modifications, without any, just following the method of UNDP and the latest data available. We computed as 0.66. And we saw in that the first slide, the opening slide we saw for 2021, now it is for 2023. Similarly, you all can compute for any year, for any country, HDI value using the same method I shown in this slide. Now first observation, the current form of HDI, whatever we saw, or even expanded versions which I am not going to discuss, a lot of expanded versions are there. These can be treated as a HDI of the post-colonial era across the world, because several countries were colonized in last 500 years and wealth was looted from those countries. And after the wealth looted from one country to other country, now the looted country comparing the wealth of the country which was looted by. So this is so the HDA, although it is per country, each country UNDP is defining, they don't use the word because it is just stolen from 90. For example, take in India in 1947 they got independence and British came in 1660, East India Company. For example, I'm giving you other countries also same, because I'm presenting primarily to Indian school children. Think that in almost 300 years, 250 to 300 years, the wealth was looted. I will also show the numbers. It's not how much looted, all that is not, I have not done research on that. I will use the published research and accepted by the worldwide, all that. So in 250 to 300 years, wealth was looted. But in 33 years after wealth looted, 1990, they started comparison. How much you have, how much I have. Let us see whose human development is higher. That was not properly addressed in 1990. So HDI annually, that's why it should be called post-colonial era HDI, because all the countries which are under colonies, those countries also 1990 only HDI started. And HDI annually by the UNDP is nothing to do with the actual human development. They call human development smartly. But human civilization started more than 5,000 years ago. And a lot of historical data I will show you today. The the financial wise, economic wise, or the social wise, social upliftment wise, social development wise, social facilities wise, lot of development occurred across the world for last 5,000 years. So it's not that UN started 1990, they are measuring how the development occurred from 1990 onwards. So over the centuries, business were well established, everything was well developed in terms of that time period. The development is continuous. But at that time period, before the wealth was looted, before 1990, several countries were well developed in terms of the GNI, in terms of the GDP. We will see in this today's talk. So historical perspective. So that's why to support the observation 1, I will show you some research results by others. This part is not, but I did research to gather the data, authentic data, to show to our school kids. So major economies, I will show also the references soon. So major economies, economic activities in India were recorded during Maurya dynasty, 300 years before Common Era. BCE stands for before Common Era. It was recorded already, the documents are there to support the major economic activities in India. So around 1 CE, that is 1 Common Era, that is almost 2023 years ago. India almost shared 32% of the world GDP, according to the well-known historians. I will show the references soon. 32% of the world GDP was in India. China shared almost 26% of the world GDP. So roughly India, China together used to have a lot of business between them, and they used to almost have 60% of the global GDP. 26 plus 32, 58. So almost 58-60% of the global GDP was between India and China, around 1 CE. And around 1 CE, the total Europe, today's total Europe, was sharing 11% of the GDP of the world. Whereas at that time, of course, US, the data was not there, nomads were there living. Although before everyone says that Columbus founded USA, blah, 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 but then before that also people were living here. But economic activities was not there that can do some trade. That was not being done or not being documented. The historians so far could not. So they mostly say that it was negligible economic activity. 1 CE. So Japan was today's Japan was almost sharing 1.2% of the world's GDP in about 2000 years back. And then because I clubbed the Europe together from the various literature, we will see in the next slide. Because all together they were, each country very minimal like Japan. So all together, I see that they are 11%. They actually had a global GDP of 11% in 1 CE. So what I did was I divided for the school kids for easy understanding. I divided the whole world into several countries and regions, because India had the largest GDP, highest GDP in the world at the time. I consider India and also China also almost closely highest GDP. And then combined the Western Europe, today's Western combined all together, I took as one unit, and then Africa, and then Japan, because Japan nowadays, in modern day, it is one of the wealthiest country in the G7, group 7 countries, and US, again modern day, one of the G7 richest country, and rest of all the countries combined. So some regions are there like Africa and Western Europe, and some countries like India, China, US, Japan, and the world. So in first 1 CE, 1 Common Era, India's share of global GDP was 32.5%. 9%. And China 26.1, Western Europe 10.8, Africa 6.9, Japan, and see total world 100. Total 100, this is 32% of the global GDP was with India and 26 with China. And after 1000 years, if you see that, not much change. See, China still high, India 28.9, almost 29, China 23, Western Europe almost same, little bit down but almost same. Africa, lot of gain in the 1000 years, lot of gain in the business activities. And worldwide, if you see that total 100 and all together, that becomes the rest of, because I clubbed all the rest of the countries other than which are here. And after 500 years after that, if you see, India 24.4, China, so almost in 1500 years, still India, China together almost 50% of the global GDP, and they had harmonious relations, business-wise, trade-wise. The historical data, historical books, all the trade books are, when I read those books and the literature, they're all showing friendly relations. And then Africa, you see that US 0.3, 15th century, there is some economic activity recorded in 1500 CE. And then, this is, I took these years, there is some reason for that. As we know that first time, the foreign invaders came to India around 1000 CE. But the wealth was not taken out. They were ruling in India, but wealth was not taken out of the country. The rulers are different. Rulers changed, but publics, the common man's economic activity remained the same. There was an encouragement in the economic activity. There is no siphoning of the money from India to outside, but the ruler was different. So 1700 CE, that's what, this is the time, Portuguese, they all came to India. This is the time, Muhammad Ghori came to India around 1000, and around that period, not exactly 1000 CE. Portuguese came to, colonies started, not only came to India, many countries, the colonies started all over the world in 1500 CE. And 1700 CE, if you see the numbers, same almost, in 250 years, not much change. So Western, yeah. Okay. So,
Yes,
so
please.
this is important, crucial. So 1700 CE, after that, if you see that, next I go to 1950. So this is 1660, the East India Company came. And 1950, if you see the numbers, see how much decline. See, 24.4 global GDP India was sharing, suddenly it became 4.2. The overs, agricultural products, many things, all the wealth was taken out of India forcibly. It's not by business, it's not by business. Better business or better things, it's just forcibly looting. And China 22.3 to 4.5. And then see there is a gain in the European GDP. Loss in the Indian, Chinese and GDP is gain to the Western European and also America GDP. At the same time, during this period, 1700 to 1950, this period also, like UK was colonized in many countries, same with many other European countries, France and Portuguese, Spain. Similarly, the US also with the slavery, they have a lot of wealth generated. There are a lot of every family, I cannot say that in the several families, they had slaves, slavery and the slaves, they contributed in economic growth. So rest of the country 31. So this is I took from the many research, but the famous book by Angus Maddison, Scottish economist. In 2003, he published thoroughly done research. And if you see the manufacturing, major manufacturing in India for last, before 17th century, before the loot started, shipbuilding, India used to export ships and silk, jute, textiles, iron, copper, all these things. General and agricultural products, if you see that, India did a lot of business on cooking oils, butter, sugar, rice, all these things India mastered, material science. Like I mentioned, building materials, material science, engineering science, all these things India excelled. And 5th century itself, as I mentioned, other talk, Aryabhatta, other people, they've done a lot of scientific contributions. So this is from the K.N. Chowdhury, one book published in 2006. And then Sashi Sivaram Krishna, Kaveh Yazdani, and then Carl Schmitt in 2015, the Atlas and Survey of South Asian History. You see that all this information I took from these published literature. So India was, in summary, is a technological hub for several hundred years before, since the Sulabasutra period. And as Dr. Gupta ji mentioned in the beginning, one can see the talk about the scientific contributions. And 2023, an article by S.G. Karanj and myself available online, and is going to appear in the European Mathematical Society magazine about the ancient contributions. So other notable book, I would recommend to read a book by Patnaik and Patnaik in 2016. She's from Delhi University, U. Patnaik. She wrote that book by along with P. Patnaik, Theory of Imperialism, Columbia University Press. And there is a statement also based on this book. They concluded in the book that $45 trillion of worth current economy, current worth of $45 trillion worth of, in terms of current dollars, was $1 trillion from India in today's economy value. British looted this much money. Economic Times, quotation by Jaishankar, the article available still online. So observation 2. So before Britishers and some of the European rulers looted wealth for several centuries from several countries and regions of the world, the standard of living was high in those countries from where the wealth was looted. And the article by Stanton, that brings a very nice review on origin of HDI, all these things, why it was launched in 1990, all those things. But Stanton conveniently ignored how the human development and economic progress was seriously affected due to the colonial rules across the world. That Stanton did not discuss at all. Similarly, Max Roser, another this thing who is I showed in the first slide, One World Data, is a publisher. I think, I don't know, is a owner or whatever, but he published articles on HDI. He also conveniently ignored the colonial era, how the loot. It's not due to business, somebody jua khel ke paisa khojan, that's different. It is that genuinely business, but they were doing with the loot. So with that encouraged me to compute based on a lot of research and I did background research to come up with if the colonial loot not occurred in India, what would have been the HDI today? Because as I mentioned, GNI plays an important role. So life expectancy, I found that 3 values, low, medium, high, and I computed with the same formula. I found out that index value 80.8511, and mean schooling years. And then I found out that I computed as a normalized index as a medium, low, medium, high, and estimated PPP. It was much more than 75,000, but that I just took the upper limit as UNDP set that value. So HDI value for India as of today, it would have been, if the loot was not occurred, 0.84 to 0.95. You see that these countries, India could have been highest, because some of these countries, UK, for example, could have been much lower HDI had they not looted, because that wealth they invested in the industrialization. Industrialization also contributed for their growth, but they needed money to invest, wealth, facilities, food, all these things from India. They used to take it out from India, sell it in the New York market, other markets in the Western European market, and take the profit directly to the London. So the wealth was transferred, Indian effort of all the things I mentioned. See, many things I showed in the Indian products, all that was used to take, and what that 250 years it was worth of 45 trillion. So they would not have been this much value today. In today's HDI value would be somewhere much lower. They didn't have money. So India's HDI value as of today could be one of these 3 lines, 0.84 to 0.95. And also I computed 1700 CE, the same research, recollect these values in the past. So at that time, 1700 CE, Indian life expectancy could be one of the highest. Maybe, globally, At that time, there are no, especially in India, there are no evidence of having stress. Individuals are very happy. There are no stress. So the cardiovascular disease was not there. That kind of things were taken care, perhaps, but then across the world there were in the 17th century, 16th century there were plague, and they were there uniformly distributed across the world. There are no other advantage, disadvantage in any country. So I took the value of 51 from the available literature, and then India's GDP in 1900 could be, perhaps one of the highest.
Yes. So Professor Rao, yes please.
With that I want to conclude.
Yes please.
Right. With the
time is running out.
Yeah. So whatever I mentioned, I want to conclude that with the HDI needs a thorough revision with the nation's wealth looted. It is not that all the countries started developing from 1990. Many things happened in the past, but UNDP they conveniently ignored that to show that all the bad things on the other countries, apart from rich countries. So the UN can revise its annual estimate based on these things, whatever I showed. The same experiment, same way one can conduct research and verify all the countries in the colonial era. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Professor Rao. So now please stop sharing your screen and so that you can come on screen. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Switch on your camera first, please. Just for the ease of my audience today, the word GNI, GDP, HDI, all as you explained, just for the ease of themselves, let me just tell the difference, slightly different. GNI is the gross national income, which is the total amount of money earned by a nation's people and business. It includes the income which is being done in the country, or it is being coming out from outside the country. If it is not from outside the country, if it excludes the money which is coming from outside the country, it is called GDP. So for many countries, GNI and GDPs are very close by, but for India too, there is some a substantial money is coming from outside the country as well. So we have a slightly different GNI and GDP values. Am I right, Dr. Rao?
Yes, you are right.
And then
The technicalities of that, if you go further, yeah, I thought of explaining, but thank you for.
children are asking me, so I thought of doing it just for that set under how this HDI is different from these two, because HDI takes care of, is supposed to take care of the parameters which affect all those things. So its HDI is more of lifestyle methods which are normally ignored while calculating GNI and GDP. So that's one quick question to you. See, though we had HIHD which was working well, which appears to be working well, and which matches with very well right from 1900 to 2015, and which this model was developed by Leonardo Scorza. It was going on since last two centuries or so. I mean, why this new change in 1990 made? Can you highlight it in one or two sentences, please?
Thank you. See, what they did was, they went up to smartly 1870, they went back up to 1870. They didn't go to those countries where wealth was so high in 1700. So 1870 up to that much back, HHID, as you mentioned rightly, they went up to that period. So now these countries whose wealth was forcibly looted, they all need to come up to stand, especially countries like India and China, to stand thoroughly, to stand strongly, to come up with the true HDI values before 1870. If you see that online, the data, so that is the main. So it was GNI contributing major fraction of HDI value, but GNI was so high, 24%. No, even today, no country holds the 24% of the global GDP, where India had a world share of 24% share of the world GDP, where even today no country had that much share.
True. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab. We would have loved to have some more questions as we have. I will be contacting you later about those questions too. But now time is running out. I request Tanvi to wrap it.
Thank you. Thank you
sorry.
so much, Dr. Rauf, once again for being a part of this program. It was wonderful having you, and your research was actually very thorough, and you inspired many others to take up this matter and highlight the matter. So it was wonderful having you, and your presentation was amazing. So thank you once again for being with us.
We also thank Augusta University for collaborating with us for this wonderful program. Thank you, Augusta. Thank you, Professor Rao.
Thank you to Dr. Gagan Gupta as well for being a part of this program, and Dr. Mamta Sharma, ma'am. So thank you to all the viewers as well for being a part of this program. It was really interesting, and we saw a discussion on United Nations annual country-wise Human Development Index. Well, we come here on this series, which is webinar Listening to Learn, and the next topic that we'll be discussing will be equally interesting. You can see on your screens whispering words, how to read a poem and fall in love with it. इसे हम हिंदी में कहेंगे गूंजते शब्द, कविताओं की झोली से कुछ लम्हे। तो इसे देखना बिल्कुल मत भूलिएगा। 7 जुलाई को हम आपके सामने आएंगे ये कार्यक्रम लेकर, और इस पे एक डिस्कशन होगी। हमारे एक्सपर्ट हैं डॉक्टर HS कमलेश। So please watch this program. If in case you have missed today's program, you can watch it again on NCRT Official. That is our YouTube channel. And do raise your opinion, your feedback. If you want us to take any topic, we'll be more than happy to do it. So we're wrapping up this particular program. Thank you all once again. Have a great day ahead. And before leaving, I just want to tell you that we're extremely proud of the fact that India assumed G20 presidency and would convene the G20 Leaders Summit for the first time in the country this year, that is 2023. A nation deeply committed to democracy and multilateralism, India's G20 presidency would be a watershed moment in her history, as it seeks to play an important role by finding global pragmatic solutions for the well-being of all, and in doing so, manifest its true spirit of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, or should I say the world is one family. So with that, I'm Tanvi Khurana. I'll take a leave of you. Please be here. Keep on watching eVidya channels. Upcoming next is a very special program, and that is a part of Jan Bhagidari events. Thank you once again. Take care. Namaskar.